Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 25 Joshua Pearce career mode. This is part 37 of the series, and if you did miss the last episode, it was Oscar Piastri claiming victory in Saudi Arabia, and it wasn't as smooth as he wanted to go after getting done by his teammate Sonny Hayes at the start of the Grand Prix, and then the positions were actually reversed during the pit cycle, but that ended up being due to a bad pit stop for Hayes, which I'm sure he will not appreciate too much, losing the provisional lead with his teammate then taking it back, and we took home another podium, so we can't be too disappointed with that. But I do wish I was able to get by Sonny Hayes there right at the end. Unfortunately, we were just kind of stuck in his DRS and didn't quite have the pace or the tyre wear to try and mount a attack, and it did take a third position, a podium, to walk away from Saudi Arabia. Piastri will head into this round leading the Drivers' Championship by 7 points to myself and our teammate Lando Norris. We are tied on points. Sonny Hayes is in 4th. He's a further 7 points behind. But then to the Constructors' Championship, it's tied at the top as well between McLaren and Apex GP on 66 points and leading Red Bull Ford by 36 points. Ferrari sit 4th, a further 10 points behind. And with all of that, we're going to jump straight to a chassis upgrade, which is going to be the minor weight reduction upgrade with a new rear floor under tray. And since rushing and the stand development are going to be done before the British Grand Prix, we will just do the standard development, since at a lower failure rate, surely that one will be able to come on without a fail. You can also see that in the chassis department, it is really close between ourselves, Ferrari, and Red Bull Ford with Apex GP. They're well out in front, so hopefully this will try and give us a slight edge against our competitors, at least in the chassis. And we'll take now a look at the bigger picture. It's Apex GP once again bringing in more upgrades this weekend just to extend their vehicle performance dominance. Ourselves, Red Bull Ford and Ferrari also bring upgrades, with there being some movement in the mid-pack, but it is incredibly close between teams like Aston Martin Honda, Alpine, Williams and Haas Toyota. Both Racing Bull Fords and Audi Sport also bring upgrades, but it's not enough to close that gap to the mid-pack, as now we head straight to qualifying in Barcelona.
It's a Catalonian qualifying for you today. Welcome along to Spain, to Barcelona, and wherever you are in the world, do you feel the need? The need for speed?
This track always felt like one of those tracks that was a little bit overused, used in pre-season testing, and a lot of teams would also use this circuit to do any test days. And now that it's actually Bahrain where we do the testing, it's actually very nice to come back to Barcelona, but this is...
Okay, we seem to be having a few software issues at the moment. Sit tight for a few minutes while we reboot some things, okay?
That is not the way we wanted to start this session, with an electrical systems fault, and that is going to set us back a little bit. But luckily, the first lap that we did in qualifying was good enough to get us through, and by the end of it, it is Sonny Hayes fastest by 4/10 to Charles Leclerc, then George Russell in third, half a second behind. Norris will line up in 6th position, 7/10 behind, and myself ended up in P8, where only a 10th behind our teammate. And at knockdown qualifying once, Gabriel Bortoleto by 200ths, then Liam Lawson, Fernando Alonso, Jack Doohan, Isaac Adjo makes both the Racing Bull Fords out, and Nico Hulkenberg makes both the Audis out as we enter the final sector here on our first flying lap here. This is also on a set of scrub tyres, so these are the tyres that we used in qualifying 1, and it completed that one lap that saw us take into 8th position, but the grip it's just not there on this second lap. Piastri now goes faster, so the Apex cars trading fastest laps, and will cross the line in 5th position, but by the time the checkered flag drops, we're now down to P12, so we need to make this lap count. Thankfully, we are able to find a bit of time on a set of new tyres, and that'll put us up into 5th position. Piastri, he's fastest in Q2 by 10th ahead of his teammate Sonny Hayes. Norris, he's in 3rd with an identical lap time to Hayes. So this is the second time it's happened in this series, and in knocked out in qualifying 2 is Alex Albon by 0.04 of a second, and then Charles Leclerc, Oliver Behrman, Paul Aaron, and Lewis Hamilton. He'll make it both the Ferraris out. So it's been a disastrous session for the Scuderia, and Lance Stroll will line up in 16th position for tomorrow's Grand Prix, as now we make a mistake into turn 1. A slight lockup makes us run ever so slightly wide, but with how flowing this first sector is, that now means we've lost the run essentially all the way up to turn 4. So now we have to wait till here to try and make some time back up, but we run it wide. I have to drop it down an extra gear to try and help the car to get turned, to try and get a little bit of an extra boost out of the corner to try and make up for whatever time I did lose, and also messed up the next corner, turn 5. And now into the final sector. Once again, I'm currently really struggling with getting the car rotated through the corners. The straight line speed, braking and all that is fine. It's just the mid-corner, getting the car rotated, that's where I'm really struggling at the moment. And I wasn't having these struggles early on in the qualifying sessions. In practice, I wasn't having these issues. But now in qualifying, when it really does matter, especially in Q3, that is now where I'm starting to struggle. And with it looking very much more overcast, I asked Mark just quickly what the weather's doing, and there's rain expected in 10 to 15 minutes. And it's now about 10 minutes later. There's no rain, but it is visibly more overcast, and this lap will put us up into 6th position, so it's not too bad, but it will be Oscar Piastri on pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix, and it was by just under 0.2 of a second ahead of Max Verstappen. Sonny Hayes will line up in 3rd with our teammate Lando Norris, joining him on the 2nd row, and it's the 3rd row of the grid for myself with George Russell in 5th, and there's a pretty decent field spread as well in this top 10.
Welcome along, everyone, to sunny Spain, specifically to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. So many great moments in Formula One history have been written at this very track over the years, including Michael Schumacher's first win for Ferrari back in '96. That win was in the rain. We might have better weather here today, but we're just as overjoyed to be at the Spanish Grand Prix. It's an updated track at Catalunya, and we welcome the removal of the chicane in the final sector, shortening lap times and reducing the total running to 2.9 miles and 14 turns. This was actually the original setup for the track, but it hasn't been used since 2007. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hayes, Norris, George Russell and Pearce, Sainz, Antonelli, Gasly and Franco Colapinto, Albon, Leclerc, Ollie Behrman and Aaron, Hamilton, Stroll, Gabriel Bortoleto and Liam Lawson, Fernando Alonso, Doohan, Hadjar, and Nico Hulkenberg rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. And joining me in the commentary box this afternoon, the First Lady of World Motorsports, Naomi Schiff. Now, we had great fun watching them win last time out. What a great victory it was. But can they carry that into today's race?
Well, they're certainly in a great position. It's always great to just come off of a win. The momentum's there, the team are working well together, and so is the car. So what they've got to do is just keep building on that. Don't change a winning formula. Keep it simple and keep doing what you're doing.
Radio check, radio check. Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
With my past experience of going for a 2-stop and then getting outdone by the AO who usually go for the 1-stop, I will also be going for the 1-stop in the hope that being on the same strategy can allow me to stay with them and hopefully make my way through the field to gain some crucial points in what I think is going to be shaping up to be an awesome championship battle. So we line up on the grid. It is eyes to the lights as we get ready for the Spanish Grand Prix in Season 3, and we are away, and it's a really good start for ourselves. We've bettered George Russell. We're going to better our teammate Lando Norris, but we're going to get boxed in behind our teammate, and we have got absolutely nowhere to go. So we brake early, make sure we don't hit the back of anyone. There's contact further ahead as Russell tries to make it 3 wide in front. He does make it 3 wide. Hayes sneaks on through to take 3rd. Our teammate, he'll take 4th. Russell maintains 5th, so it has pretty much stayed the same in the top few positions. It is Piastri leading the way by only a couple of tenths ahead of Max Verstappen, and those two have bolted. It's 1.5 seconds from Verstappen to Hayes, as behind it is the Williams of Alex Albon trying to get himself ahead of Kimi Antonelli, and he will make that move stick by going down the inside at turn 5, and then by the time they get to this uphill S section, the Williams there of Alex Albon will be fully ahead, and Antonelli's not looking like he's got a lot of pace, because without DRS, remember DRS will be activated at the end of lap 1. end of lap 1 has been, but where the detection point is means that down this main straight there was no DRS. So without the DRS, Oliver Bearman was able to overtake Kimi Antonelli. And now looking at this, you can see Antonelli's now found himself all the way down to 13th. He's also been done by Colapinto and Charles Leclerc. The Ferraris are expected as they make their way through the field after both being eliminated in qualifying 2, but he is dropping through the field and he's now 2 seconds away from Leclerc, but still able to hold it just ahead of Lewis Hamilton as Carlos Sainz, he's moving his way up through the field as well. He's now up into 7th position, and he's on the soft compound tyre as well. So starting on the softs, I would imagine he is going to be on a 2-stopper. We're going to have to keep an eye on that one, though, because, as I said on the grid, I usually get outdone trying to go for a 2-stopper. So now there's some AI possibly going for the 2 stops. It could be interesting to see how they can make it pull off, and you could also see there that we got our first objective to try and get past our teammate. So we've currently got George Russell sitting between ourselves and our teammate, so we have to make a couple of overtakes to try and make it work if we want to pass this objective. But Lando is going to make this much more difficult for us to be able to do that, because he looks to the inside of Sonny Hayes, and this will get him onto a provisional podium early on into this Grand Prix, and he makes the move stick going down the inside at turn 3. He set it up down the main straight using the DRS, and it was a series of switchbacks through 1 and 2 to get him that positioning for turn 3 to seal the deal. And Verstappen will also get himself now into the lead of this Grand Prix ahead of Oscar Piastri in the Apex GP vehicle there, who got pole position, and at the moment it looks like there isn't too much race pace in that car, because he was able to pull away and Verstappen was able to go along with him. But look at that gap now between first and second. It's 2.5 seconds, and it's only taken a couple of laps for that to go out. So Piastri is in absolute struggle town, and the gap between Piastri and Norris is also coming down quite rapidly as well, as there was a car off in the background. It's Isaac Hadjar who is out of the Grand Prix. So let's take a look on board and see what happened here to the Frenchman, and he just slows down the main straight. No smoke coming out the rear, so maybe some sort of electric gremlin, not so much to do with the internal combustion engine, and he'll pull it off there at the exit of turn 2. No VSC, no safety car required for that one. A very quick pull away for the marshals to get that one off the circuit, and we failed the objective. We weren't able to do it. Norris has been able to pull away pretty well, and he now finds himself in 3rd position ahead of Hayes and Russell there. You can see that I'm able to get close to the back of those 3, but it's never enough to mount an attack. I can't really get too close. I don't know if it's a mixture of the dirty air or just the fact that I don't really have the pace at the moment, with the qualifying struggles. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a case of lack of pace. But you can see here, Carlos Sainz, he's in for his first stop, and he's gone back onto another set of soft tyres, and there's a few other drivers actually in the lane as well. The likes of Liam Lawson's in, as well as Oliver Bearman and Nico Hulkenberg, but it's a slow stop for Hulkenberg, and that's not going to do him any favours, as they all now line up 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st in this Grand Prix, and they're all going to be doing the 2-stopper as Norris. He now gets himself up into 2nd, and so it hasn't taken very long at all. That 2.5 second gap to Norris, to Piastri, has not only come down, but it has resulted in Norris now getting up to 2nd. So Piastri really has some issues at the moment. If it's a car issue or if it's tyre wear, we'll surely find out sooner or later. But we'll do an order check now. So it's going to be Verstappen leading the way ahead of Norris, who we just saw the overtake for 2nd position. Then Piastri just holding on to 3rd. And then it's his teammate Hayes in 4th. George Russell, ourselves in 6th. Gasly, Colapinto, the 2 Ferraris of Leclerc and Hamilton move up inside the points. Then it's Alonso, Antonelli, Aaron, Stroll, Bortoletto, the 2 Williams of Sainz and Albon. And then it's Oliver Bearman ahead of his teammate Jack Doohan and Liam Lawson. And then Nico Hulkenberg, after that slow stop, now finds himself last on the road with Isaac Hadjar, so far the only non-finisher of this Grand Prix. We saw him pull off the road there with some sort of issues. Up ahead, it is getting so feisty. George Russell down the inside. Piastri is put off. Russell goes off the track with a contact with Piastri as he swerves to try and avoid George Russell there. Russell is in the fence and has got heavy damage. He keeps it going though. We're going to have to box this lap because we can't sustain this amount of front wing damage. And you can see how much we're struggling there, having to constantly saw away at the wheel to try and get the front end to bite with whatever downforce we've still got left. And it has all been turned upside down. Mark is wanting us to go for a 2-stopper, but I am tempted. We're only a few laps early, so I'm actually going to stick to the one stop. We're going to pit a couple of laps early, so hopefully the tyre wear is not going to be too extreme on those hard compound sets of rubber. And so let's try and work out what's happening here. So this is on board with Oscar Piastri. He's been struggling with some sort of either mechanical issue or he's just got no grip left in these tyres. Russell comes absolutely steaming through and loses the rear end. And then we make contact with the back of Piastri. This is on board with Russell now. So he goes down the inside, gets on the throttle well and truly before the apex, carrying so much speed, loses the rear end and puts it into the fence as we now enter the pit lane. And we're going to try and make this our one and only stop. You can see there that we're already facing some tyre wear. So boxing early probably isn't the worst idea in the world because the tyre wear that we were facing on these mediums. So let's try and see if we can't do some sort of undercut. But it's going to be very difficult to actually get this done because not only has it been a longer stop with the front wing change, you may have seen there, I couldn't find the clutch. I couldn't find the clutch bite point. I was spamming the clutch button and it just wasn't disengaging. And so we stayed in the box for a little bit longer than necessary, probably costing us half a second to a second. And that could prove very, very big in this Grand Prix, losing the rear end on the change of direction there between 1 and 2 with these cold tyres. And we get our next objective to avoid damaging the front wing. So are we maybe short on supply? Because we've been... also remember, we're in a inflation scenario. So is the cost of this R&D meaning we don't have a large amount of spares, and that is why the team wants us to look after this front wing. Obviously, we want to look after the front wing and not take any damage, because any damage means a change in front wing, slower stop, and it just puts everyone behind. But the fact that even though we've got a fresh one and they really want us to make sure we don't damage it, makes me wonder if in this high inflation scenario, we don't have a lot of spares with us for each Grand Prix weekend, which gets me a little bit nervous because some of these things are out of our control. I mean, I could rewatch that scenario that we just had with Piastri and Russell and gone, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, and in all honesty, re-looking back, I had a little bit of object fixation there, just staring at the back of Piastri, trying to figure out how I can avoid it, and I think in the end it just kind of made me kind of veer more into him than trying to avoid him. And take a look at this traffic, and there we are. We're coming up to the back of it, and this has not played out very well whatsoever for us, because all of these cars have now legitimately pitted and we are behind the lot of them, as now our teammate, he is in the lane for his one and only pit stop. So he's filtered through to the lead, and with Hayes in a second following him into the lane here. And by staying out longer, he's now got himself a tyre offset to the rest of the field, which hopefully could give him a little bit more pace to try and challenge Max Verstappen. But so far, Max Verstappen looks like he's in an absolute league of his own, as Verstappen now goes through to retake the lead. And he's going to have quite some margin, because Norris is going to come out here in second position. And what's the time going to be? It's currently sitting at 6.9 seconds, but I imagine it would go further up, as now Oscar Piastri sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So definitely a change of tyres has improved his pace. So maybe just trying to keep Verstappen at bay for the first portion of the Grand Prix has absolutely cooked those mediums that he was on. And now he's got the fresh rubber and probably around more people of his pace, because, yeah, as I said, I think Verstappen at the moment is just in a league of his own, and you can see just how much understeer we're getting with the dirty air in this big pack of cars that we're still trying to make our way through here. And you would have seen there as well that we did pass our objective to not damage the front wing any further. It's now a side-by-side with Gasly. We've got to thread the needle and get both Behrman and Gasly going into turn one, and that is a very opportunistic move. That's what we need to do if we need to get ourselves through this field to try and salvage whatever we can left of this Grand Prix. Up next for ourselves will be Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. So he's done a brilliant job to get himself from a Q2 exit inside the top 10, and the same goes for Lewis Hamilton, currently sitting in ninth ahead of the Haas Toyota there, and Leclerc further improves his position by getting himself ahead of the Williams there up into fifth. And now that means once Albon has now done his pit stop, Leclerc fifth, we are now sixth position, so we're now back on target to try and chase down Charles Leclerc here. And our new objective is to try and stay ahead of Pierre Gasly. So is Mark now trying to tell us that we can't improve the position? There's not enough time, the gap's too big, the pace isn't there, and so now we just have to try and maintain sixth and to try and just take home what we can despite what we've been through. And this is going to help our cause, because behind Gasly he is now, rather than trying to attack us, defend from Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. Hamilton, though, with the DRS, Gasly's fallen outside of our DRS, so he's now sitting duck down the straight. We'll lose the position to Lewis here, and Hamilton will now go up into 7th. Gasly sits in 8th, but he will now come under attack from the Red Bull Ford of Franco Colapinto, and just behind them is Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin Honda. I have not spoken anything of the Aston Martin Hondas so far today, and there we go, right at the end of this Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso, using all of his wisdom, has now been able to get himself inside the top 10, and he could be battling here for an 8th position with Colapinto and Pierre Gasly. But back to our onboard now. Our objective to stay ahead of Gasly will be completed, and you can see there just how much I'm still trying to push to see if I can't catch Leclerc. I really need to stop trying to push him because the gap is continuing to extend. It's now 4.5 seconds to Charles Leclerc, but yeah, pushing it very hard to the point that I'm running wide at the last corner and skateboarding it on the curb on the exit there as Alonso gets himself now up into 9th. Gasly was attacking us to try and take 6th, now finds himself just holding on to 10th position, but he's luckily got 5.5 seconds to Carlos Sainz, who's currently sitting in 11th. As now Hayes powers past Lando Norris, and that will put him up to 2nd. So Norris, that tyre offset hasn't worked for him, but Hayes, remember, also boxed the same lap, so maybe the Apex GP car just generally does have the better pace on us so far this year. I mean, they're well and truly at the top of the performance charts. It's Colapinto. He has now got himself ahead of the Ferrari, so it's constantly tossing and turning about which car looks like they've been able to look after their tyres and be able to maintain a good pace. As now, for a second, I thought that was an engine failure, but luckily, it's only a DRS failure. I say luckily it's a DRS failure because we currently don't have any DRS. We've got no one in front of us. It's 7 seconds to Charles Leclerc, but this won't help our defense with Colapinto because if he overtakes us and we're able to stay within the DRS, then that means we can use it to try and re-overtake him and try and stay in that 6th position, but unfortunately, that is not going to be the case because we still had no DRS. It's still offline. Colapinto gets by us, and the pace of that Red Bull Ford, I do not think we're going to be able to overcome that to take that position back. And you can also see we're now facing tyre wear problems. So this was what I was worrying about with boxing 3 laps early. It's now Hamilton tries to go around our outside. We brake later, drop it down an extra gear, and we're able to defend our 7th position that we're still holding on to. As now Antonelli, he's down to 13th. We saw him struggle at the start of the Grand Prix, and maybe this is a little bit why. It looks like he's been carrying an engine issue, and he's made contact with Paul Aaron as well, so maybe a little bit of a smokescreen there for Paul Aaron, and that has resulted in contact between the Mercedes and the Aston Martin Honda. Antonelli is out with an engine failure, and that now leaves 20 runners for this final lap of the Grand Prix. Hamilton gets us. We dive it down the inside. We're going to go side by side through turn 2, and on the exit, we're going to get the power down. We've got the ideal line for turn 3, and we hold on to 7th position. But this is getting all so close before the final lap of the Grand Prix. But what is not so close? The lead that Max Verstappen has got. It's 16 seconds. He will claim victory for and take his first win of the season. The championship surge is on for Verstappen. Can he take championship number 6 this year? Sonny Hayes will be coming back in position number 2. It's an Apex GP car on the podium, but probably not the car they were expecting in today's Grand Prix, considering Piastri was on the pole. Piastri won't even see the podium because our teammate Lando will do a good drive to get from 4th position onto the podium. Leclerc across the line in 5th with Franco Colapinto on such a charge, but that Ferrari had great pace because it was 8 seconds in the end between Colapinto and Charles Leclerc, and for ourselves, we managed to resurrect a 7th position, which is not too bad considering the absolute chaos that we witnessed in today's race.
It's another victory and a champion's performance from Max Verstappen.
What a great way to turn the situation around. And you know what they say, it's not about how you fall off the horse, it's about how you get back on it. And today, they've done a great job of turning the page and rectifying their wrongs.
And it's time for that special moment for our special 3 today. The podium awaits our top 3 finishers. But there can only be one on the top step. Your number 1, Max Verstappen.
So that's win number 1 for Season 3 of this series for Max Verstappen. And as I said, could this be the resurgence for Max in this championship. He was dominant in today's race and just reminding us what he is still absolutely capable of. And Sonny Hayes and our teammate Lando Norris is also up on the podium as well for the championship, and seeing our teammate there is not what we want to see, but for ourselves, it was the wrong place, the wrong time, and we copped some damage, which put us on the back foot strategy-wise. The rest of the top 10 was Piastri, Charles Leclerc, Franco Colapinto, myself in 7th position, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and Carlos Sainz, the highest place two-stopper in the end. Isaac Hadjar was the only non-finisher because Antonelli is actually classified as 2 laps down, and Oscar Piastri leads the Drivers' Championship by 4 points to Lando Norris. Hayes is in 3rd, 4 points behind Lando, and myself, we dropped to 5th, 4 points behind Max Verstappen. And for the constructors, it's Apex GP leading the way by 9 points to McLaren. Red Bull Ford a further 24 points behind us. And for our driver ratings now, the experience and pace lose some points, with the focus dropping to level 88, and the racecraft gains some points with the awareness up to level 91 for an overall driver rating now of level 91. And for our driver recognition, it remains at 51% against our teammates. And that is going to be all for this episode. So if you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and subscribe. And for the next episode, we have another upgrade for the car coming in, and hopefully this can start to close the gap to Apex GP. And it is also going to be not only our home race, but the team's home race for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. I'll see you then.